Curling, the game with the ice and the rocks and the sweeping and the yelling. Each game starts with a handshake and a coin flip to determine who goes first. Then, two teams of 4 people take turns throwing 44-pound stones down a sheet of ice. The target? A 12-foot house that looks like a bullseye, just under 150 feet away. Each team throws 8 rocks, and the team closest to the center after all the rocks are thrown will score the points. This process is repeated for 6 to 10 rounds, called ends, until one team is victorious. It's just that simple. Or is it? Each team has a captain called the skip. Like a general on the battlefield, the skip calls the shots that will best ensure victory. Stones are delivered with a predetermined rotation, so they actually curl as they travel down the ice. Of course, this is why the sport is called curling. Over the course of each end, players can throw guards to block the house, draws to try to score, or takeouts to remove the opponent's stones. The skips then spend the rest of the time yelling like a crazy person. What they're actually doing is emphatically advising their players to brush the ice in front of the stone. Brushing can drastically affect the speed and direction of the shot. After each team throws its 8 shots, the team closest to the center of the house will score. Or, if they have more than 1 rock closer than the opposition, they count as well. Once all the ends have been played, whoever has the most points wins. Aside from a few dozen other minor details, that's all there is to it. Find a curling facility near you and get started.
Curling is a sport which is steeped in rich history. The first written historical record mentioning curling dates back to 1541 in Scotland. As settlers arrived in Canada, so too did the game of curling.
Curling started from the Scottish immigrants. Curling started in Scotland, and the Rideau Canal obviously was built by Irish and Scottish immigrants. So as the settlers happened here in this eastern Ontario, and obviously here in Smiths Falls, they needed an activity in the wintertime. So the Scottish immigrants decided, let's try curling right here on the Rideau River. So actually curling started here in Smiths Falls in 1873, right here on the Rideau River, right down near the Frost & Woods factory right on the river.
Though the game was brought over from the Scottish Highlands, it was the Canadian climate and the resources in the area which shaped the early days of curling in eastern Ontario.
As you say, in the cold and the wind, is that first of all they needed to come up with their equipment. There was different varieties of stone and what type of stones did they throw, and actually it was the resources that they had in this area. So actually the first curling game was started by the army here in Canada, and actually they took cannonballs and melted them down, and that's why they're called irons. So they actually used to curl with iron stones, but here in eastern Ontario we actually have a lot of stone granite, and actually the first stone granites that they curled with here in Smiths Falls was a 90-pound granite stone on the Rideau River. So I'm sure that was quite the stone to push. And also as far as brooms, they just use the same old household brooms that we use today. And also they would be out there in the cold. So they'd have to get out there and shovel their sheets, and then they're standing there in their full-length fur coats, and they have their little bowler hats on, or they had their costumes, and keeping warm was also very interesting in what they used because of what they needed.
As curling grew in popularity amongst the residents of Smiths Falls, the town saw the building of its first curling rink.
The first time they curled here in Smiths Falls was in 1873. Then 6 years later, they actually formed an official Smiths Falls Curling Club, and that was 1879. And at that time, one of the first gentlemen that was curling at that time decided they did need to build a rink, and his name was Adam Foster. The first one was built on Daniel Street, and actually it ended up, it had a curse, they think, because it was built on the 13th. And it had 13 rafters, and actually it collapsed. So then they built a second rink and it, I believe, was on Winifred, and it was the largest indoor rink in Canada in its time, and that was in 1912. And then they moved over to James Street, and a lot of people today will remember the one that was on James Street. And then in 1979, they built the rink that's right beside us here on Old Slice.
Throughout the years, the location of the rink may have changed. However, the town has never forgotten one of its first winter pastimes, and curling continues to be a popular draw for its residents even today.
Hey guys, Trace here for D-News. I'm at the Oakland Ice Center in Oakland, California, and we're going to learn about curling. It's been a sport on this planet since the 16th century. It started in Scotland, and now it's in the Olympics. So we're going to learn about the science and physics behind throwing rocks down ice. So I'm here with Mike Greenberg of the San Francisco Curling Club. Mike, tell us a little bit about curling.
The object of the game is you're actually throwing these 42-pound granite stones with a handle attached to them all the way down a sheet of ice, a little more than 100 feet, and trying to get it to land in a very specific place on a target.
How's that work? I mean, it's ice, so it's slippery, but it's bumpy too.
So we pebble the ice. It's basically sprinkling water on top of the ice. It creates these little hills and valleys, basically, on top of the ice that the rock glides over. What this means is that there's less of the bottom of the rock in direct contact with the ice, so it slides a little more easily. There's less friction. You teach me talk about the ABCs of curling.
Okay.
Alignment, balance, and curl.
Okay.
So first thing we're going to talk about is how you get lined up to get this thing down to the other end of the ice. So I'm going to step on the slider, get used to that, crouch down, take my aim, get my stabilizer right here. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is a little bit forward, back, hips up to create some momentum, and then down and forward. The curling refers to the fact that as the rock goes down the ice, we're going to put a clockwise or counterclockwise rotation on it, and it curves to the right or to the left as it moves down the ice.
And the stones themselves are made of granite?
They actually all come from the same quarry in Scotland for consistency. Wow. It's not flat on the bottom like you might expect. It's actually a ring that's a sharpened running surface. Okay. So again, less of the rock in contact with the ice means less friction.
Is bad. And they are hydrophobic, which means they repel water more than they absorb it.
Right.
But they also transfer momentum well, as you were saying.
Absolutely. So they've got a hitting band that you'll be able to see around the side of the rock. So when it hits another stone, it can impart the vast majority of its energy to that other rock, and you can knock things around at odd angles. If we hit this stone right here, what it's going to do is it's going to send this stone, even though they're locked up, it's going to put a little bit of momentum on it this way. It's going to drag the back rock with it, and hopefully right into that red stone.
Cool. Okay, so, let's see it.
You do this.
Ah! What about these with a brush thing?
Curling has the distinction of being the only sport in which you can affect the trajectory of the thing you're throwing after you've let it go. By brushing the ice, what you're doing is you're warming it up. A lot of people say they're not sure, they think that you're melting the ice a little bit. But the effect that it has is that you can carry one of these stones straighter than it would have gone and carry it up to 10 feet further than it would have gone under its own weight. So what we're going to do is you're holding it on the right side of the body. You want one hand high, one hand low on the broom, and you want to put it down like that with your body weight on it.
Okay.
And remember, we're trying to heat up the ice,
My weight is on it.
If we were to put this down on a bathroom scale, what we'd be looking for is how many pounds can we put on that? As many pounds on it as we can have, as many strokes as quickly as we can have. Okay. That's what's going to impact your sweeping.
Got it.
Okay. Trying to melt ice here if we can.
Okay. So when did curling become an Olympic sport?
Curling's been in and out of the Olympics as an exhibition game for some time, but it actually became an official Olympic sport most recently in 2002.
Whew.
Congratulations, you know how to curl.
Well, thank you very much.
That's where you can sweep. You have a good workout?
I did. I feel like I need to sweep harder and more. Guys, who knew there was so much science to this sport? Curling is awesome. Make sure that you come find us on Twitter and tell us what you think, or if you're going to like curling a little more at the Winter Olympics this year, now that you know so much more about it. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.